Hey, it's July 2nd, and we find ourselves in 2 Kings chapters 1 through 4. Have you ever wondered why God didn't just take us to heaven the moment we believed the gospel? I did early in my Christian life, but then it hit me. If God took believers straight to heaven the moment they believed, who would be left here on earth to share with those who had yet to hear the gospel? Who would have been left to share with us in the first place, for that matter? You see, God works through people, as we'll see in today's passage. In chapter 1, the wicked king Ahaziah died due to injuries that he incurred from a pretty significant fall, and because he trusted in Baal to heal him instead of the Lord. And that didn't go so well. In chapter 2, Elijah is taken to heaven in a fiery chariot, but don't worry, he'll be back in the end times. But notice that this is now the third and fourth time in Scripture that water is parted. Elijah parts the Jordan going across it, and then Elisha parts it returning, in full view of 50 prophets. Just like Moses and Joshua before them, the parting of water signifies God's choice of a leader. Elisha succeeds Elijah as the leader of the prophets in Israel. At the end of the chapter, Elisha is confronted by at least 42 youth. Small boys is better translated, teenagers. We know there was at least 42 because that's how many the female bears killed. There were probably more that ran away. Now, they were not teasing Elisha because he was bald or just making fun of him. They were saying, "Try to get away from us, old man." This was a large gang of teenagers who wanted to kill Elisha. They failed. In chapter 3, the kings of Judah, Israel, and Edom joined forces against Moab. On their way to Moab, they got lost and were wandering the wilderness long enough to run out of water. They find Elisha and ask for God's help. Now, Elisha only talks to and helps the wicked kings of Israel and Edom because the godly king of Judah, Jehoshaphat, was with them. God causes water to come up out of the ground, and the armies survive. Early the next morning, the Moabite army mistook the water for blood in the light of the sunrise and thought that Judah, Israel, and Edom had turned on each other. They go down into the camp expecting just to collect the spoils and are ambushed by a very much alive army. In chapter 4, Elisha performs 3 miracles. He provides oil for a widow and her son to pay their debt and to live on the rest. He raises an old couple's son back from the dead, and he makes a poisonous stew safe to eat during a time of famine. So what can we take away from today's passage? First, there is only one God who can heal and save, and that's the God of the Bible. Don't chase after false religions to your detriment. Second, God has chosen to work through people. Prophets and godly men and women in the Old Testament, His church in the New Testament. We are God's ambassadors in the world, delivering the good news of salvation and living redeemed lives freed from sin's bondage for the world to see and believe our message. And third, God protects and provides for both the righteous and the unrighteous. So many examples of God's miraculous provision for both groups of people in these chapters. Remember that Jesus told us in Matthew chapter 5, verse 45, that God makes His sun rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the just and the unjust. And we should love and care for both our neighbors and our enemies, as God Himself does. My prayer for us today is that we would trust God to provide for all of our needs, that we'd be willing to live as His ambassadors in this world, sharing His truth and love with everyone. If you haven't done so yet, please download our Through the Bible reading plan at HesperiaCommunityChurch.org/throughthebible. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.